Imagine a shadow. Not just any shadow, but one that moved across America for decades, unseen, unheard, leaving a trail of devastation that went largely unnoticed. A shadow that preyed on the most vulnerable, those whose absence might not immediately trigger alarms, whose lives were already on the fringes. This is the story of Samuel Little, a man who, for far too long, was nothing more than a whisper in the wind, a chilling void in the lives of countless families, and ultimately, the most prolific serial killer in American history. His story isn't just about a monster. It's about the silent screams of those society often overlooks, the cracks in our systems, and the relentless pursuit of truth by a handful of dedicated individuals. It's a stark reminder that some of the most profound tragedies unfold not in dramatic explosions, but in quiet disappearances, one by one, year after year. For nearly 50 years, Samuel Little moved through the underbelly of America, a phantom. He wasn't a mastermind of intricate plots or a figure who reveled in public notoriety. Instead, he was a drifter, a former boxer, a man who blended seamlessly into the transient populations of cities and towns across the country. He was arrested dozens of times for various petty crimes, shoplifting, assault, even rape. But somehow, the true horror of his nature remained hidden. He was a ghost in the machine of justice, slipping through the cracks of a fragmented system, a system ill-equipped to connect the dots of his widespread malevolence. His victims were almost exclusively women, often marginalized, vulnerable, and living on the fringes of society. Sex workers, drug users, women struggling with poverty or addiction. They were women whose disappearances might not be immediately reported, or whose cases might not receive the same urgent attention as others. They were often women with no strong family ties, no stable addresses, no one to immediately raise the alarm when they vanished. This tragic reality was Samuel Little's greatest advantage. He exploited the very invisibility that society had, perhaps unintentionally, cast upon them, turning their vulnerability into his opportunity. From the late 1970s through the early 2000s, Little's reign of terror spanned at least 19 states. He would pick up women, often in bars or on the streets, drive them to secluded locations, and then strangle them. His method left few obvious signs of struggle, and often the cause of death was misidentified. Many of his victims were initially classified as accidental overdoses, or their deaths attributed to natural causes, or simply left as Jane Does, unidentified and forgotten. Their stories, their lives, were swallowed by the vastness of the American landscape and the limitations of forensic science at the time, leaving behind a chilling silence. Consider the sheer scale of this. While other infamous serial killers might have operated within a specific geographic area, or over a shorter period, Little was a nomadic predator. He moved from Florida to California, from Ohio to Mississippi, leaving a trail of death that was geographically disconnected and chronologically scattered. Each local police department, each county sheriff, each state agency was dealing with individual cases, unaware that they were all pieces of a much larger, horrifying puzzle. There was no central database, no easy way to connect a body found in Kentucky to a missing person report in Louisiana, especially when the victims themselves were often nameless or transient. This fragmentation was his shield, allowing him to evade detection for decades. The conflict in this story isn't just the killer's actions, but the systemic challenges that allowed him to operate with such impunity for so long. It was a failure of communication, a lack of interconnectedness between law enforcement agencies, and a societal blind spot towards the lives of the most vulnerable. For decades, Samuel Little was a dark secret, a chilling testament to how easily human lives can be devalued and forgotten, a haunting reminder of the cost of oversight. The turning point, as it often is in such cold cases, came with the relentless march of forensic science and the unwavering dedication of a few individuals. In 2012, Samuel Little was arrested in Kentucky on a drug charge and extradited to California for a separate narcotics case. While in custody, DNA evidence from 3 unsolved murders in Los Angeles from the late 1980s linked him to the crimes. These were cases where the victims had been strangled and their bodies left in alleys or dumpsters. Finally, after decades, a crucial thread began to unravel, offering a glimmer of hope for justice. The lead detective on the case, a persistent and empathetic investigator named Mitzi Roberts, began to dig deeper. She saw beyond the initial charges, sensing a darkness that went far beyond drug offenses. The DNA was the key, but it was Roberts's intuition and the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, or VICAP, that truly broke the case open. VICAP is a national database designed to identify patterns in violent crimes, and it began to flag similarities between Little's known crimes and other unsolved cases across the country, painting a clearer, albeit horrifying picture. What followed was perhaps the most chilling chapter of all, the confessions. In exchange for a transfer to a new prison, Samuel Little began to talk, and he talked for hours, days, weeks. He confessed to killing not just 3 or 10 or 20, but over 90 women. His memory for faces, for locations, for the cars he drove was disturbingly vivid. He would recount details of the murders with a chilling detachment, often drawing portraits of his victims from memory. These drawings, hauntingly rendered, became a crucial tool in identifying the forgotten, giving faces back to those who had been erased. Imagine the scene, a seasoned detective sitting across from a man who calmly describes taking the lives of dozens of people. There was no remorse, no emotion in his voice, just a matter-of-fact recounting of events. This wasn't exposition, it was the raw, unvarnished truth of a predator. The emotional weight of these confessions fell squarely on the shoulders of the investigators, who had to listen to these horrific tales, knowing that each one represented a life brutally extinguished, a family forever fractured, and a profound injustice finally brought to light. The resolution of this story is not a neat, satisfying conclusion, but a painstaking, ongoing process of reclamation. With Little's confessions and his chilling drawings, law enforcement agencies across the country began the monumental task of matching his accounts to cold cases, to Jane Doe's, to missing persons reports that had long gone dormant. Each confirmed victim was a small victory, a name restored, a family finally given a semblance of closure, however painful, a step towards healing in the face of immense loss. As of his death in 2020, Samuel Little was confirmed to have killed at least 60 women, making him the most prolific serial killer in United States history. The FBI believes the true number could be even higher, exceeding 90. His case forced a painful reckoning within law enforcement and society at large. It highlighted the critical need for better interagency communication, for more advanced forensic techniques, and perhaps most importantly, for a renewed focus on the lives of those who are most vulnerable. Those whose stories might otherwise remain untold, a call to action for a more vigilant future. The legacy of Samuel Little is not just the horrifying tally of his victims, but the profound lesson it offers about human dignity and the persistent pursuit of justice. It's a story that compels us to look closer, to listen more intently, and to remember that every life holds immeasurable value, regardless of circumstance. The shadow may have passed, but the echoes of those forgotten lives, now finally named and acknowledged, serve as a powerful, enduring reminder of our collective responsibility.